You can spend like thousands on a pristine 4K OLED TV and a flagship soundbar, right? But if you're routing your gaming console and your streaming box through a $5 optical splitter, you are basically bottlenecking your entire system.
Yeah, you're quietly choking it.
Exactly. So today we are doing a deep dive into the Blustream OPT41AU four-way optical switch. We're looking at specs and user reviews from HDTV Supply, mainly to figure out why preserving high-fidelity audio really requires dedicated active hardware. It's not just, plugging cables together and hoping for the best.
Right, well, the problem with those cheap passive splitters is they act like a leaky pipe.
Yeah.
You push a digital signal through, and the hardware just physically splits the light, which immediately drops the signal integrity.
It just cuts it in half, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. But the OPT41AU takes an active approach. It pulls up to 4 SPDIF inputs and switches them to a single output using its own dedicated internal circuitry. And since it's built for actual home theater integration, it actually includes a front panel IR receiver.
So you can just switch sources from the couch.
Exactly. You're not getting up every time you want to play a game.
Okay, but let's pause here because the $134 price tag feels, well, a bit steep. I mean, if someone just wants 4 devices to share one soundbar, why not just buy a cheap dongle? Isn't this really just an overpriced splitter?
Well, no, and the real justification for that cost is the built-in DC, the digital to analog converter. It doesn't just route the audio, it actually translates it. So it simultaneously outputs optical, digital, coaxial, and analog left-right stereo.
Right, all at the same time?
Yeah, all at once. And that simultaneous output is critical when you're integrating modern digital sources with legacy analog amplifiers. But the implementation of this specific DC is what really matters here. It supports massive sample rates up to 192 kilohertz at 24-bit resolution.
Oh, wow. That is serious studio-level depth.
It is. I mean, you can slap a DE in any cheap box, but if the internal circuitry introduces noise or, crushes the dynamic range during conversion, the analog output is basically useless. The Blustream handles that translation natively without compressing the original source.
Which makes sense, because that robust circuitry also tackles the silent killer of digital audio, which is jitter.
Oh, absolutely. Jitter is huge.
Right. I noticed the spec sheet heavily emphasizes its, quote, ultra-low jitter and high-fidelity design. But jitter sounds like, what happens after I drink too much coffee? What does that actually mean for the listener's ears?
So jitter refers to these microtiming errors in data packets. And those errors can make high-end speakers sound incredibly muddy. It's like, think of a digital audio stream like a drummer.
Okay, a drummer.
Yeah. If the drummer is even a fraction of a millisecond off beat, the entire rhythm feels sloppy, right? In optical audio, if the timing of those light pulses isn't perfectly synchronized, the conversion misreads the data.
Oh, wow. So that's where the mud comes from.
Exactly. It creates that muddy distortion. But by actively reclocking the digital signal, using an active circuit to maintain flawless timing, this device ensures the ones and zeros arrive exactly when they're supposed to.
That completely explains why users are seeing these specs actually translate to real-world performance. I mean, Anthony T., a buyer who left a review in January 2026, he specifically praised the completely clean pass-through.
Yeah, no added color, no drop packets.
Right, and he tested the Toslink digital performance too. Combine that with the solid metal chassis and the 5-year warranty, and it's pretty clear this is engineered for longevity. It's not just a quick aesthetic fix to hide cables behind the TV.
No, definitely not. Signal routing is an active, delicate process. You really can't just cross streams of light and expect perfection. The hardware has to actively manage and preserve that data.
So if you are building out a complex home theater setup and you need to perfectly balance multiple digital inputs without sacrificing that high-fidelity sound, this little 140-millimeter piece of hardware is doing a massive amount of heavy lifting behind the scenes.
It really is the ultimate audio traffic cop.
Well, that's a great way to put it. But it does leave us with a lingering question. As our televisions and soundbars pack in more aggressive internal processors and smarter connectivity, will these dedicated external writing boxes eventually become obsolete? Or will the pursuit of pure, uncompressed audio always demand a standalone piece of hardware that is totally isolated from the rest of the TV's operating system?
It's a fascinating debate.
It really is. Definitely something for you to think about the next time you fire up your sound system.